Assalamu alaikum everyone. Thank you very much for coming. The session is related to scaling, right? And in specific, what are the challenges of scaling IT services companies? And we're going to make it a bit interactive. So scaling an IT organization company is not different than scaling anything, right? So those of you who have balloons, right? So let's put some air in those balloons. Let's see what are the challenges you face. But थोड़ा सा फुलाइएगा, ज़्यादा नहीं फुलाइएगा. Very good. बस इतना फुलाइएगा. हाँ जी. आपको प्रॉब्लम हुआ? हाँ बस ठीक है. You got it. You got it. You got it. Right. So, what were the things involved in scaling your balloon from nothing to a little bit of air? First of all, the material of the balloon, right? If there were holes in the balloon, आप सारी जिंदगी लगे रहते, जितने भी आपके lungs में power होती है, आप थोड़ा सा फुलाते हो, जितने डालते उतना निकल जाता, right? And if the balloon's capacity was so little, then obviously you would have overinflated it, and that would also have, popped the balloon, right? So similarly, if you look at an organization, and now you have to hold this balloon, right? ये अब आपकी कंपनी है, ठीक है? इसको छोड़ देंगे ना तो कंपनी खत्म हो जाएगी, right? So you have to hold the balloon. So in a company as well, if we were to draw the analogy, in a company, in a balloon you have the surface of the material of the balloon, which is important, right? Not every balloon can be scaled more than what you currently have in your hands. In a company, when a founder, nobody in this room, myself included, has founded any company, right? When we joined an organization, we expect that balloon to have a specific surface. It needs to have some strength. We always join a company thinking this company will take us to the sky, never really asking ourselves this question: this balloon that I am in now, does it even have the right surface to keep on expanding? We join companies and we expect every year company will keep on growing and growing and growing and growing, right? That's our expectations. So when was Facebook started? 2004. So 2004 it had 0 employees. How many employees it had in 2015? 10,000. And how many employees does it have in 2021? 68,000, right? So if you look at from 2015 to 2021, what was the cumulative growth rate in terms of headcount? 37.6%. What that means is, starting from 2015, it grew by 37.6% to 2016, then again 37.6, then again, and now it has how many? 117,000 employees. How does this compare with Google? When did Google start? 1998. What was its headcount in 2015? 57,000. And what was your headcount 2015? 10,000. And now what is its headcount? 135,000. What is yours? 68. What is your cumulative growth rate? 15.5. What was yours? 37.5. So you could see that Facebook is growing faster, right? But that doesn't mean that Facebook will overtake that. And there are other considerations as well, right? So that proves the point that when you join a good company, these companies, what was the headcount for Google in 1999? 1998, what was it? 0. 2004? 0, right? So company started with 0. And obviously it's very hard to excite people to join your company when you have no employee and you're the only guy. But they still were able to convince employees to join. Do you think in 15 years that Facebook started from 0 to 10,000 plus employees, do you think the balloon that got inflated, can you imagine Facebook hiring mediocre employees, having mediocre processes, mediocre policies? Do you think they could have grown to 10K in 15 years? In 11 years? No. Same with Google, right? So just imagine that when you become part of an organization, or when you take a bet on a balloon and you're inside that balloon, you don't know Because you don't know how many Facebook pluses and minuses that never made it past the 5th year, right? So you really don't know. But what you need are certain basics, right? So first of all, what are those basics? First of all, the founders, what are their ambition? What are their aspirations? What is their vision, right? What is the culture they stand for? And most importantly, how do they sell themselves, right? It is easy to sell systems now when it has how many employees? Anyone?
35.
You include BPO and it's like 5,000, right? Do you think it's hard to sell systems to employees now? What do you think back in, when was system started? 77. Just imagine. Do you think it was easy? Well, in that time, maybe it was the only IT company. And actually, let's look at, before we go into that stage of scaling, let's look at how human civilizations evolve. So you start off with a family. So the dynamics of family and dynamics of a smaller company are very similar. Now let's look at what are those dynamics. क्या होता है? Family में क्या होता है? What are various attributes of a family? They stick together no matter what. So this is that they are deeply engaged with each other, right? Engagement, human engagement is high. There is a notion of someone who started the family and someone who kind of makes in case voting is split, so there is someone who will have the casting ballot, right? So there is a notion of some sort of hierarchy, but it's very loosely defined. But there is still head of the family. So there is something which is unconditional, right? Unconditional love, right? So your son comes up and he says, I am marrying and you are invited. So as a father, traditional father, I would say, no, ये शादी नहीं हो सकती, ये क्या हो गया, वो क्या हो गया, उसके बाद मैं क्या करूँगा? Unconditional love, उसी मुंह से जाऊँगा, वही उसको वो बरी भी बनाऊँगा, जहेज भी वो सारा कुछ करूँगा, आगे से वो डांस भी कर रहा हूँगा, right? Because there is some notion of unconditional love. So what am I doing here? My son went ahead and married on his own. So there was some unsaid rule. Why am I angry at him marrying on his own? कोई गलत तो नहीं किया? इस्लामिकली गलत किया उसने? नहीं किया. दुनिया की नॉर्म में गलत किया? नहीं किया. तो why am I angry? Because there is some unsaid rule whereby, because there is a notion of a head of a family, I wanted to be consulted. So there is a rule, it's not written anywhere, but everyone understands that this has to be followed. आप imagine करें मेरा बच्चा 4-5 साल का हो और उसको मैं कहूँ यार rule number 1, you are not going to marry on your own. Rule number 2, तो वो शायद 10 साल में ही घर छोड़ जाए, right? So there are a lot of unsaid rules in a smaller organization which are not documented. But because people are deeply engaged, it is understood that you follow those rules. And when you violate those rules, then what happens? Love is unconditional. So in a smaller organization, which is a family level organization, what is the status of processes? They don't exist. And people are very deeply engaged. Lot of our decisions are made based on emotions, on associations, and almost everything, every policy can be violated. And exceptions are given right and left all day long, right? So that's a family, and that's how a small company starts. Now next, so your family increased, you had kids are married, they have kids, right? So when families grow like this, then what happens? Is there unconditional love? There just isn't enough love to go around, right? What about engagement? आपस में 2 बहन भाई होते हैं, उनको सब पता होता है, आगे उनके 4 बच्चे हो जाते हैं, तो फिर क्या होता है? कम हो जाता है, उनके और 4 बच्चे हो जाते हैं. So now in human civilization, when you expand like this, what is it called? Tribe? वो book उसको tribe कहती है. So let's call it tribe. एक कबीला हो गया. So what happens in tribes? There is still love. कितनी जंगें हुई थी, इस्लामिक हिस्ट्री उठा के देख लें. There was a tribe जो कि मुसलमानों के साथ जंग कर रहा था. There is still some bondage, some engagement because of tribe, but now it has expanded. So what happens to the processes and policies? Do they still exist or do they don't exist? क्या होता है in a tribe? They exist. There is some notion of some processes, but they are not always enforced. There is an intent to enforce it, and whoever is on the fringes of that tribe, उन पे आप enforce करते हैं. But if you go into the core of the tribe, then usually it's not enforced. Now the tribe expands. What happens now? साथ वाले tribe से कुछ लोग इधर आ जाएंगे, उधर शादियां हो जाएंगी. So now what is this next evolution stage called? So इसको कहते हैं village stage. Village stage में भी ये होता है कि my village versus his village. उस level पे तो आपके processes होते हैं, ठीक है? But not, beyond that. So there are some processes. You start enforcing those processes. The population is little bit less engaged, but still engaged enough. एक ही मस्जिद में नमाज पढ़ते हैं, सलाम दुआ हो जाती है. किसी की अगर फौतगी हो तो सबने जाना होता है, right? So there is some level of engagement. Another aspect of scaling is, what about when you have to change the rules? In a family, in a tribe, in a village, if you have to change the rule, how quickly do you do that? Through discussion, very nimble, very flexible. ठीक है? विलेज में, वो साथ वाले विलेज में हुआ कि यार आंधी आ रही है, चलो भाई चलो, एकदम से you change whatever rules you have to change, एक जगह पे जमा हो जाओगे, you protect yourself, right? So there is some nimbleness to external factors that are part of village stage as well. So in terms of being fun to live in, what is more fun? Family, tribe, village. So it's fun to be part of the family. You don't want to have that fun, right? But it's just fun, right? Nobody, मेरा छोटा बेटा, मैं कहता हूँ who's your best friend? वो कहता है बाबा. मैं बड़े से कहता हूँ who's your best friend? वो कहता है ये क्या question है? Of course it's not you, right? तो वो आपको एक अजीब डायनेमिक जरूर होती है, but at the end of the day it's the family. So family, and then you have tribe, and then you have village. What happens after village? City. Then it's city. What happens after city? Then country or nations, right? So these are family, tribe, village, city, nation. So this is what Reid Hoffman says, who is the co-founder of LinkedIn and PayPal, and has written very extensively on scaling organizations. These are various stages of how human civilization has evolved, and this is exactly how almost all organizations evolved accordingly. So an organization which is at a family stage, its number of employees are, you can count them on fingers, right? It usually has 0 to negligible revenue. अभी start हुई है ना, जो freelance मिल जाते हैं, उनसे कभी पूछेंगे यार आपका revenue कितना है? वो उनको नहीं पता होता, वो एक दूसरे की बस तनख्वाही दे रहे होते हैं. They never talk about revenue. And there are 5-6 friends, and so that's the family stage. Then you go to tribe stage. In tribe, the number of employees are 10 to 99, right? It's tens of employees, right? You usually have 1, 2, 3, 4 customers, right? In a village stage, you have hundreds of employees, 200, 300, 400, but certainly less than 1,000, right? And your customers are also 10, 11, 12 customers आपके होते हैं, right? In a city state, then obviously you have thousands of employees. And in a nation state, you have tens of thousands of employees. So where is systems? Which state? City state. For those of you for whom systems was not their first job, what was your last company stage? Village? City? आप किधर से हैं? वो village stage है ना? Thousands पे city. अगर systems पाकिस्तान की लार्जेस्ट कंपनी और वो सिटी स्टेज पे है, तो आप सारे उससे नीचे की स्टेज में. कोई फैमिली या ट्राइब कंपनी से भी आया, लेस देन 100 पीपल, राइट? नाउ यू नो दैट व्हेन यू स्टार्ट ब्लेमिंग अ कंपनी और यू स्टार्ट रेमिनिसिंग, यार वहाँ तो ऐसे नहीं होता था, वहाँ तो मैं सीईओ के कमरे में चला जाता था, राइट? व्हाट आर यू ट्राइंग टू डू हियर? आप अपनी एक दुनिया बना रहे हैं. आप एक गुब्बारे में आए हैं and you're saying I have joined systems because I believe company will grow and grow and grow and grow. और जब वो गुब्बारा बड़ा होता जा रहा है तो उसका स्ट्रेस भी आपको पसंद नहीं है. आपको अभी भी सीईओ के कमरे का ओपन डोर पॉलिसी चाहिए. वो बेचारा जो है वो शहबाज शरीफ को बता रहा है, आईटी एक्सपोर्ट को 2.5 बिलियन से 200 बिलियन कैसे लेके जाना है, राइट? सो व्हेन यू स्केल एंड यू आर पार्ट ऑफ दैट balloon which is scaling, you still want something which was a family company, tribe company, village company benefits. So there is nothing that a growing company can do to give you some of the benefits of when the company was small. So where do companies then have a problem, right? अब growth की हम बात कर रहे हैं ना. So सबसे पहले ये देखें जिनका गुब्बारा है वो गुब्बारा खत्म हो गया ना, वो उसका है, वेरी गुड वेरी गुड. बाकी अच्छा दोबारा फुलाएं. ओ तेरी कंपनी छोटी हो गई यार, इसको दोबारा फुलाएं ज़रा, दोबारा फुला के इसको विलेज स्टेज पे लाएं, थोड़ा और फुलाएं, विलेज स्टेज पे लाएं. हु आर द स्टेक होल्डर्स? अब ये जो बलून है, ठीक है जी, इससे कोई 2-4 स्टेक होल्डर्स जब कंपनी को ग्रो करना है, राइट? सो देयर आर पीपल इन्वॉल्व हु आर स्टेक होल्डर्स इन दैट ग्रोथ, हु आर फीडिंग दैट ग्रोथ, benefiting from that growth. Who are those people? Founders, the biggest stakeholders, जो पहले फूक मार रहे थे, तो founders ही कर रहे थे ना, ठीक है. C-level executives, which is the top leadership, right? Employees, all of us. Maybe I'm in both. Customers, investors, your board, and all of that. So now when you are scaling the organization, what is your theory in how these stakeholders need to scale? First of all, question, can you scale an organization if the stakeholders are not scale ready or are unwilling to scale? What happens is that because not all stakeholders have the same impact on or the same role in scaling the organization, therefore, what happens is, depending on how unwilling or how incapable a specific stakeholder is in scaling himself or herself, the company may or may not have the right scale. Right? So, what does that mean? अच्छा जी, as a founder की ambition ही नहीं है कंपनी को grow करने की. उसकी ambition है मेरी जेब में बस हर साल का $2 million आना चाहिए. As an employee आप जितना मर्जी जोर लगा लें, scale हो सकती है? नहीं हो सकती. फाउंडर की और सी लेवल एग्जीक्यूटिव की एम्बिशन और एस्पिरेशन है कि हमने सिस्टम्स को $1 बिलियन बनाना है. आप एक फ्रेश क्यूए इंजीनियर हैं, आप नहीं चाहती, कितना कोई डैमेज कर सकती हैं आप स्केल पे? खास नहीं कर सकती, और 3-4-5 महीने में खुद ही निकल जाएंगे, राइट? So all these stakeholders, for a company to have a consistent scale, a scale that you as an employee can enjoy, the society can enjoy and benefit from, every stakeholder has a responsibility. Every stakeholder's lack of performance on that responsibility will have some impact on scale. So remember that. So जो main जो notion थी जो session के आखिर में लिखा हुआ था, उसमें ये लिखा हुआ था, आपका क्या role है? So let's focus on 2 stakeholders, the immediate managers and the employees. Right? Now let's talk about that. As an employee, how do you become scale ready? How do you yourself become a scale agent?
You need to know the evolving trends.
Enhance your skills.
Improve your skills. But when a company scales, ट्राइब विलेज से ऊपर चले जाएं, वो होता है ना, ट्राइब और विलेज में एक हकीम होता है जिसके पास सारे इलाज होते हैं, राइट? लेकिन जब फैंसी किस्म की कोविड आ जाती है और इस किस्म की भी ना सिटी, और उसके अंदर पुराने ज़माने में जब हजूर सल्लम के ज़माने में वो हजूर सल्लम से प्यार तो उनकी अम्मी करती थी, क्यों भेजा था दूसरे उधर रेगिस्तान में पलने के लिए? डज एनीवन नो क्यों भेजा था? मक्के की जो आबो हवा थी, इट वाज कंसिडर्ड वेरी अनहेल्दी, क्योंकि दुनिया से लोग आ रहे हैं, इधर से आ रहे हैं, बीमारियां लेके आ रहे हैं, ये है, तो उसमें ये अमीर लोगों का ये तरीका था कि यार बच्चे को अच्छी अगर आपने परवरिश देनी है, स्ट्रॉन्ग बनाना है, आप उनको उधर भेज दें. सिमिलरली व्हेन एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज नेशन लेवल, सिटी लेवल, देयर आर लॉट ऑफ ailments, lot of adversities that get thrown, and not all of them, for most of them, the companies would not have a recipe. There are companies in US that have gone against this tide. So they're saying, we are scaling, we understand all the challenges of scale, but we are not going to follow the same recipe and playbooks that other large companies have. we are going to create policies and processes which are agile and still can work in a large organization. Example, आप में से कितने लोगों का GPR हो चुका है? Do you enjoy that? Is it an enjoyable activity? Is it something you look forward to? आज मेरा GPR है. नहीं. Do you think your manager enjoys doing that? No. And neither you nor your manager are alone. All over the world, especially in IT industry, nobody likes doing reviews. Nobody likes being communicated. The review score and the managers hate it just as much as you do. And so industry has come up with various ways. वो कहते हैं यार एक manage my objective एक philosophy है, then OKRs एक और philosophy है, then Microsoft got so fed up उन्होंने कहा there is our annual review system is that there is no annual review. They let go of annual reviews, right? Netflix is also another company. Netflix said, well, I understand the reviews need to be there, and you already know what I'm talking about. But they said that, okay, we need to have a review, but we can't have it the way these companies do. So they thought, they asked a basic question. अगर मैं आपसे ये कहूँ रिव्यू का आउटकम सिर्फ एक आंसर होना चाहिए, वो क्या आंसर होना चाहिए? एक कंपनी के लिए या एक इंडिविजुअल के लिए रिव्यू का लुब्बे लुबाब in a single sentence, what is that? What is the crux?
Opportunity to scale.
No, but then if you go that route, then you will keep on adding more. Am I smart enough? Am I scale ready? Then you end up having the same problem. At the end of the day, why do we care as an organization for you to be scale ready? Why do you care for you to be smart? Why do we care? एक question, सिर्फ वो ये है, should I keep him or her? Should I let them go? That's the only question that review systems are. That's the only legitimate outcome of a review system, right? इसको रखना या नहीं रखना, right? अच्छा, जब एक ही सवाल है तो उसके लिए इतनी बड़ी ये मुश्किल चीज़ करने की क्या ज़रूरत है? So Netflix said we will have a review system, but that's the only question we're going to ask. And they told their employees that you go and ask this question to your manager. And managers को उन्होंने कहा कि यार this is called a keeper test. उसका नाम है keeper test. आप Google करके देखें, आपको पता चल जाएगा. And the question was, if this person leaves today after giving a reasonable notice period, how hard? Will you fight very hard to stop him? The answer is yes or no. इसके बीच का कोई आंसर नहीं है. अक्सर एज अ प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर हम क्या करते हैं, हमें होता है यार ये 2 हफ्ते बाद रिलीज जानी है, right? So therefore, I can't lose this guy. Although he's so, I can't lose him. So that's why the question is phrased such that कि वो notice period दे के जा रहा है, लंबा notice period. Now you are not constrained by the limits of the project. So you're thinking outside of a project and you're saying, well, probably I'm not going to fight too hard. So you can look at all these great companies and see all these innovative processes and policies that they have rolled out. Why? Because they don't want to scale in a way that creates bureaucracy. So now they're coming up with innovative policies and procedures to reduce the bureaucracy, and we all agree that in a city or a state or a nation kind of a scale, we need these processes. Without this, the society, the company falls apart. And here is a company that is trying its level best not to have bureaucratic process, and even something as simple as keeper test, it is very difficult, if not impossible, for us to roll it out at systems. Not for the reasons that you were saying, for the simple reason, as humans, as companies, culture, inhabitants, we are not ready to handle some of these agile processes, right? So what do we do? अब मैं last point पे आता हूँ. That's where people like me are failing you, and people like me are failing systems. What do we do now? Either we insist because we have read something fancy from Netflix. I can insist and say, in my team, this is how it's going to be, right? That's one way of doing it. And if someone criticizes, Kashif, क्या कर रहे हो? I'll say, ये Netflix ने किया है. One way of doing it. Or the other way of doing it for me to be bloody innovative. And I would say, look, my culture is not ready. People are not ready for this kind of blunt, open feedback. So here is how I will ready them. Number 1, as a manager, I will reverse keeper test you. What that means is, every, let's say, quarter, all the people who report directly to me, they will be asked an anonymous question from HR, which is, Do you want to keep Kashif as your manager or do you want to fire him? It's anonymous. You can be open, and the answer is yes, no. The day I, as a manager, am okay with that answer be given to me, not anonymously, with your name next to that, the day when I'm okay to hear that blunt feedback from you is the day when you will be okay for normal keeper tests as well. And that goes for all the processes, policies, whatever innovation you want to do. This is the kind of innovation that we as managers, जो कि scale, हमने भी तो scale होना है. This is our scaling. To give you the processes. अब वो गाड़ी का शीशा टूट गया तो क्या करना है, कैसे करना है. This is our innovation. Right? So thank you very much, everyone. So those of you who have TCS and Infosys, Wipro का हुआ तो who have those? TCS की जरा growth बताएं हमें. खोलें. 1968 में बनी, ठीक है. 2015 में 320,000 लोग थे. 2021 में 528,000 लोग हैं. रेवेन्यू कितना है? 26 बिलियन डॉलर. आप बताएं इन्फोसिस. 1981 में बनी.
2015 में 176,000.
ठीक है.
और 2021 में 276,000.
ठीक है. रेवेन्यू 13 बिलियन डॉलर्स का रेवेन्यू है. Right? So that's the potential and the benefit of scaling organization. Just imagine in Pakistan, if you can build systems even to 10,000, 20,000 employees, 20,000 employees, that could translate into $1 billion, right? You cannot reach that 1 billion unless you do all that I say and much more. You can't reach it without scaled mindset in employees. You can't do it without scaled mindset founders, investors, board, and blah, 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 blah. You can't do any of that unless those people are there. If we are able to create systems to that revenue, imagine how many scaled individuals we would have produced. And then those scaled individuals can go and start their own Infosys and Wipro and systems. That's fine. That's how Wipro, Cognizant, Infosys grew, by tapping into that talent from Tata and all these companies who had started this earlier. Why has Pakistan not produced a large enough IT company? Right? That's a fair question to ask, right? So many people have failed us, right? So I'm going to give you a few examples. Number one, our businessmen. They have failed us. How? Infosys, Wipro ko kholein sir. When was it built? 1945. Wipro को जो नाम है, it stands for some, I think, oil refinery something, right? So it was actually an, I think, edible oil company in 1945. In 1970s, the second generation thought IT is interesting, so I want to do IT. So they diversified into IT. 1947 में पाकिस्तान की कितनी वो बड़ी families थी? How many those? 20. वो कहते हैं ना 20 families, 20 large businessmen families. How many of them actually did anything for IT? How many of them diversified into IT? Only one Crescent Group था, and उन्होंने Crestsoft खोली थी, वो भी चंद सालों बाद खत्म हो गई थी. So our businessmen, do you not think they have failed us? Tata was one of the larger group, right? Tata and Sons, they opened. TCS का किसके पास है? Who has TCS letter? हाँ जी, कब खुली TCS? 1968. In 1968, they started Tata Computer Systems and started doing some programming on punch cards for their own companies, right? In 1965, what was Pakistan doing? After that war and everything, we were building Islamabad, right? Government was building Islamabad, and we were saying we're going to start scratch, beautiful city, and Karachi is too close to the border. We'll have a fight and Karachi will be taken, and right? So we were doing that. What were our businessmen doing? Starting another bank, textile, guaranteed revenue, no risk, no futuristic thought process, and unfortunately still continue. So our businessmen have failed us. These statistics जो मैं आपको दे रहा हूँ कि अगर 1968 में आपने कंपनी खोली होती और फिर ये खोली होती और फिर ये खोली होती तो आज $1 बिलियन की कंपनी बैठे होते. 1977 में सिस्टम्स आई और विप्रो जो है वो 1970s में आई. So you could argue कि जी why is systems not billions of dollars? Why not? Did a businessman start systems? A technologist start system. Who are starting IT services companies in Pakistan today? Confiz, a computer science graduate, Raza, a good friend. RBSoft, Yasir, computer science graduate. What is his business background? No. Not a son, third, fourth generation of a business tycoon family, no. Technologists, they're starting their own company. They don't have deep enough pockets that large business people have. They don't have the context, they don't have the international reach. They have to learn everything from zero, right? So that's how our businessmen have failed us, right? That's why our growth is. This is number one. Number two, universities. When do you think IIT, Kharagpur or Kanpur, or one of these two, when do you think, which year do you think they started their computer science department? 1968, they started their computer science department. Which year do you think NED started? Much later than 1968. हमारी university उसके बाद. Which year do you think UET started their computer science program as a degree? 1990s. So our universities, they have failed us. When you're not producing computer science graduates and system has started in 1977, there is no human capital available. So systems growth obviously is going to be slowed down. So who are the people system was hiring? System was hiring some expats जिन्होंने कंप्यूटर की कोई डिग्री की, जिस तरह IBM के कुछ थे और जिस तरह एजाज साहब भी ex IBM थे. Those people who went out, got a degree, came back, and then so obviously you can't grow 10,000 people every year. There isn't enough people. So our universities have failed us. Our business people have failed us. We as an employee, we have failed those companies as well because we don't have scale mindset. Our leaders, managers like me, we have failed this system as well because we are not innovating, we are not reading books, and when we read the book, we say कि यार यही तरीका है, कीपर टेस्ट ऐसे ही करना है. We are not innovating, we are not questioning. So our expats have failed us. What is common in Google, Microsoft, IBM, MasterCard? What is common between these? There are two things common in these companies. All of them have Indian expat CEOs. Second thing, none of them have any Pakistani expat CEOs. So our expats have also failed us, right? Services companies are slightly different than product companies. Product companies cannot survive without this kind of innovation. Right. They always have to disrupt, otherwise someone will come and disrupt. Or you do inorganic growth. Like Facebook knows it cannot have competed with WhatsApp, so it goes ahead and bought that and Insta and whatnot, right? So product में बहुत ज़्यादा risk होता है. Services companies की आप देख लें, तो उसमें अगर आप ये जो मैंने आपको envelope में दिया, if you look at the growth percentage, services companies have kind of single-digit growth percentage beyond a certain scale, 8.7%, 9.3%. But if you look at Facebook and Google and all of them, double-digit growth. So product is a high-risk, high-reward kind of a situation. With services, services companies that die, it's a slow, painful death, not like Nokia. It's a slow, painful death, and you can always have multiple opportunities to turn it around. Anyway, so thank you very much, everyone, for your time today. And those who have the letters, I just challenge them with a question. What percentage do you think systems can and should grow? And you can do the math. आप अगर जाएंगे गूगल करके उसको CAGR CAGR का फार्मूला देख लें. ऑल्दो CAGR का फार्मूला ज़्यादातर रेवेन्यू ग्रोथ पे इस्तेमाल होता है, मैंने हेड काउंट पे इस्तेमाल किया हुआ है. सो जस्ट यूज़ दैट फार्मूला एंड सी कि 5 साल के बाद आपके हिसाब से सिस्टम्स को कितना ग्रो होना चाहिए, राइट? Now that you know how other companies are growing. Thank you very much, everyone.